my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
Hello, BYWG Podcast Tribe. This is Dr. Noah. For the month of April 2019, the book of the month is Kate Northrup's new release, Do Less, a revolutionary approach to time and energy management for the busy mom. And the product of the month is BYWG's very own Probiotic Power supplement, which is available with the 10% discount code Probiotic Power 10. Folks, it's case sensitive, so it's capital PROBIOTIC, capital POWER 10. As a reminder, as always, all the links for the product of the month and the book of the month will be listed in the show notes in iTunes, in our weekly newsletter, and on our website at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com at the Listen Now tab. As mentioned, our book of the month is Do Less, a revolutionary approach to time and energy management for busy moms by Kate Northrup. Dr. Mike had the distinct honor to interview Kate for our podcast, and it can be heard in the month of April through the many channels our podcast is available on: iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or through our website at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com. The product of the month is one of BYWG's truly unique, truly premium supplements, Probiotic Power. Probiotic Power is a shelf-stable, comprehensive probiotic with a whopping 25 billion CFUs in each capsule, meaning it's very potent, and includes 9 of the most beneficial bacterial strains from the Lactobacillus and Bifidobacter families. For the month of April, the 10% discount code is capital PORBIOTIC, capital POWER 10. In the archives of our podcast on our website, you can listen to the comprehensive review of all 8 of our supplements, and in the month of April, one podcast release will be solely dedicated to Probiotic Power. Enjoy the upcoming podcast. Hello and welcome back to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer and I'm your co-host. Today our guest is Dr. Jaime Hope, author of Habit That. Good to talk to you, Dr. Hope. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. You have like the perfect last name to be a doc, for sure.
Yes. I've actually had patients ask me if it's a fake name, but that is my actual last name. So Dr. Hope.
Nice, nice. I'm going to run through your bio and then we'll get started, okay?
Sure.
So Dr. Jaime Hope is a dual board certified physician working outside of Detroit, Michigan in one of the busiest emergency departments in the country. In over 12 years on the job, she has learned that no matter what brought her patients to the ER, they all want the same thing: to live happier, healthier lives. Today, whether she's helping patients, teaching future docs, or engaging the local community, Dr. Hope is showing others how to create better habits and making healthy living fun, practical, and accessible and acceptable for that matter.
Yes, acceptable, accessible, all of the good things.
All right, so this is the first time you're on our podcast. How about just fleshing out that bio a little bit more? How did an ER doc get involved in health promotion and preventative medicine? Just give our audience a little bit more well-rounded bio of yourself.
Yeah, so, I get that question a lot. So I've always been very passionate about my own health and habits, but it was specifically working in the emergency department that really made me want to branch out. So when I see patients, they're there on the worst day of their life. And I know, as a doc and as somebody who's taken the extra time to educate myself on nutrition and exercise and sleep and stress relief, that if those patients had done a few things upstream, it very likely could have prevented them from having to be there, sitting on this stretcher in a ridiculous one-size-fits-nobody gown, having a crisis. And so I had that fire in my belly and I got really passionate around it, and I decided that that's where I was going to focus all of my side energy, in addition to continuing to work clinically.
And on top of both these avenues, you also teach as well, correct?
I do. I'm an assistant professor at the get this school name, the Oakland University William Beaumont School of Medicine, which is nice and long. But I get the absolute honor and privilege of teaching future doctors how to help take care of their patients. And not just the medicine part. You know, everybody has to learn anatomy. Everybody has to learn the Krebs cycle. But there's more to medicine than medicine. And it's about connecting with your patients, being a good human being, and helping your patients make health protective behavior changes.
So how do, on a day in and day out basis, how do you handle both of these hands where you're dealing with people that are, like you said, in their worst moment of their life, quite possibly, and on the other hand, all you want to do is tell them, well, if you just ate right and you exercised and you did some stress management, you probably wouldn't be here. So how do you manage that or rectify that in your own mind on a day-to-day basis?
You know, it's difficult. And some people, those are teachable situations. You know, they're there having a heart attack and they are open and willing to learn, and some people aren't. So I find it's not appropriate to be invasive with advice. I mean, certainly I'm their doctor and I'm going to make some recommendations. But if patients are receptive and ready, I'm more than happy to help point them in the right direction and hope that they never have to see me again in the emergency department.
Now, I just have to ask this question just out of curiosity. Do you see patients, repeating patients in the emergency room like multiple times? Is that a common theme or not really?
You know, we do. Unfortunately, sometimes the choices and the health and the problems that led them to come into the emergency department in the first place, without making any changes, we end up seeing them back again.
So what lessons from working in these high stress environment like an emergency, because I couldn't imagine doing that, can you share with our listeners? And if you have any patient success stories along our conversation, please share those as well.
Yeah, so I have one of the ones, and I actually talk about this in the book, because sometimes I don't get follow-up. In the place where I work primarily, there's 57 attending physicians. We're the 9th busiest ER in the country. So if a patient comes back, odds are 1 in 57, right, but they're going to see me again for that repeat. So sometimes we lack a little of that follow-up. But I was helping at one of our community hospitals, and this gentleman came in, very heavy smoker. He was thin, so it wasn't an obesity issue, but very heavy smoker and having a heart attack. And he was receptive and listening, and so I gave him like the epic cheerleading speech of a lifetime about really helping empower him. Like, smoking caused this. We're going to fix this blockage. We caught it at the right time. We're going to fix this. New lease on life. You can do it. So fired up. I hadn't even had caffeine that day. I don't know what got into me. And so several months later, he came back in for a totally unrelated thing, not a health issue, more something like an ankle sprain. I don't remember exactly. And I'm going through my usual questions. And one of them is, I ask everybody, do you smoke? He's like, Dr. Hope, don't you remember me? And I do remember a lot of my patients, but at the same time, when you see thousands of patients, you don't always remember right off the bat. And so I was looking at him, and like, gosh, you look familiar. And he's like, I was the one having the heart attack. I'm like, oh, yeah. He's like, I quit smoking that day. I feel great. I've never felt better. And I almost started ugly crying. But I don't get a lot of the feedback, so I hope to plant the seed for my patients. I hope to be the first domino. And, sometimes they actually send me cards or letters or come back and tell me that made a difference. And that is the best part of my job.
I'm a chiropractor and a functional medicine doc, and I see patients on a daily basis, not in an emergency room, but yet right. when thank you letters and things that are unsolicited, there's nothing better, or referrals or whatever. How those things are those are the best. That's the best of the best for sure.
Yes, when you see that somebody's actually taking the advice and are doing health protective behaviors and getting better, because that's why we went into this, right? We want to help people.
Now, how did you learn this? All this, not the emergency room, not the doc, like the stuff in your book. Did you just this is a personal endeavor for you to create your own better personal habits, and then you started sharing them with whoever's around you? Like, how did this all kind of come together?
It was a combination of personal journey. I was a terrible eater growing up. I was a junk food junkie. If I ate 3 vegetables in my entire childhood, I'd be shot. Sorry, Mom. But so part of it was my own journey, and being the science nerd that I am, I'm like, well, I want to ensure what I'm saying and learning and doing is accurate. So taking courses in nutritional biochemistry, taking courses in supplements, in nutrition, in exercise, even in, Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese herbal medicine, stuff like that, just so I could get a very broad approach to the human being. And each of those different practices brings something special to the mix. And interestingly enough, the focus underneath all of them is listen to the human being. Treat the human being. It's not about just throwing a pill at them or a new thing, but really taking time to that listening and understanding, and really knowing how human habits are created and sustained. We're such fascinating creatures, aren't we?
We do. I talk a lot about habits and creating habits and routines and rhythms, and I believe, and we can discuss this a little bit if you'd like, that habits, routines, rhythms, they create so much more freedom in your life. Most people think those things are restrictive and they bog you down, but when you have habits on a day in and day basis, when you know what you're going to do, when you have an idea what you're going to eat, when you know where you're going to be, even when you know when you're going to be 3 months from now, which in many cases I do, that is so much more free. It gives me such a greater sense of freedom and peace than just living day by day, not knowing what the heck's going on in my schedule or my day.
Oh my gosh, I could not agree more. Routines completely set you free. It takes all of that extra stress and thinking off your cognitive load. And that frees you up to, live your best life, come up with amazing ideas, connect with other people, and not worrying about when you're going to eat healthy, when you're going to exercise, because it's a habit and it's built into your routine, just like brushing your teeth and putting on your pants.
Right. There's only so many decisions and answers we can make in a day, and at some point you just get decision fatigue and overload, and then just it's all havoc. Nothing seems to work.
Yeah. That's when we find ourselves like elbow deep in a cake. We ran out of decision-making power, and it was there, so what the heck?
Now, we're talking about habits and routines and things of that nature, and you talked a little bit about diet and all the nutritional work you did. Take that. Let's just swing back around to that a little bit. Everybody's looking at the new fad diet, what to eat, how to eat. What do you tell weight loss? What do you tell a person or someone who read your book or someone who might send you a question and asks you about some advice on whatever, ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, which is the newest, the hottest topic, what?
Right. You got to take it to the next level.
Right. So does it get back to basically just individualistic, looking at the person, looking who they are, where they came from, what they do on a day-to-day basis? Is it as simple as that?
It is, because we all have different goals. If somebody is trying to, do a lot of heavy lifting and build substantial muscle, they're going to have different nutritional needs than somebody who is trying to be slim or lose some fat. So the idea that there's a one-size-fits-all diet, first of all, is ridiculous. But when people ask me, if this fad diet or if that fad diet works, the answer is yes, depending on what your goal is. You could make up some complete BS bacon and donut diet, and you could, if it's low enough in calories in terms of your overall, you can lose weight. Is that healthy for you? Absolutely not. So I try and get people out of that whole BS of the month club, ridiculous realm of fad diets anyway. Because if your focus is on being skinny, you can do that in any unhealthy way. I mean, you can start doing cocaine and get skinny.
Right. True, very true.
Right. So what I try and help people find, it's so much more about mindset. So instead of owning the word skinny or whatever, get rid of that and own the label, I am a healthy person. Does a healthy person eat nothing but bacon and donuts? Of course not. A healthy person helps nourish their body and take care of themselves physically, spiritually, sleep, stress relief, and things like weight will naturally follow the healthy habits. That shouldn't be the focus, because you can do that in very unhealthy ways.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And we people just get caught up in these new fads, and I see patient after patient just doing the next diet after the next diet. They lose 5 pounds, they gain 8 pounds, and it's just terrible. It's just terrible, yo. And I believe biochemistry and just health wise, that's just it. That they're even creating more problems than if they just ate the crappy the way they were before they continually try these fad diets in and out. So.
Yes, this whole yo-yo dieting thing and these extreme shifts in weight, I honestly, I agree with you. I think that's probably worse.
Yep. Now, let me ask you a little bit of a kind of an authentic, maybe a little bit vulnerable question. Because if I was to ask you what weaknesses or habits you're trying to create in your life or improve upon, are there any things that you're working on?
Oh, absolutely. Just because I have expertise, sometimes knowledge doesn't always translate to doing.
Absolutely.
No, for the most part, I've cleaned up I've reformed my junk food junkie ways. I used to be a Cheeto-tarian, and so now I eat very healthy. So when I do have something like the occasional brownie, I don't have any guilt or shame or emotion associated with it. I can actually just enjoy the brownie in a very, healthy, fulfilling way and then move on. So eating and exercise, I've got pretty well cleaned up. Those habits are so ingrained. It's like brushing my teeth and putting on my pants. Stress relief, I'm pretty good about that. Working in my environment, I kind of had to. I had to learn, because we have an extremely high burnout rate. Yeah. So you either go down in flames or figure out how to develop ninja level rock star coping skills. The one I still struggle with, and I know the right things to do, is sleep.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that, because I'm on that same train. Believe me.
Yes, I'm a shift worker, and trying to you're on. You're busy level 1 trauma center. You get home at 2 a.m. It's a little hard to shut down. But I've used some of the technique. Actually, I shared my superhero technique in the book. I felt a little vulnerable about sharing that. But yeah, even still, I have a lot of deadlines coming up. I'm doing, a lot of speaking gigs in the next couple of months, and I'm traveling, and I had, you have to have your slides turned in, or you have to have this paperwork turned in by a certain day. And I'm like, this is a true deadline I can't ignore. And then I find myself staying up a little later. I'm like, no, I'm ignoring my own habit advice. I'll try and just as quickly as I can reel it back in and try and get back in that healthy sleep habit pattern. But it's not always easy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Sleep, and then I would personally, I don't even know why I'm saying this, but I would like to eat earlier in the evenings, and I don't really know how to do that because I don't work shift work, but I don't get home till 7:30, 8 o'clock every night, and I don't like to eat that late every night, day in and day out. But it's a very hard thing and habit to change, so I'll figure it out.
It is, and if you're working all day, you can't get home and then not nourish your body. Right. It's just frustrating that it's later than you want it to be. So realistically, things happen in our lives. We do the best we can. And so that's what I just try and encourage people. Do the best you can, but sometimes you just have to work with what you've got.
Yeah. So let's get into the book a little bit. How did that come about? Was this always just a passion project of yours, or it just kind of happened, or you felt you had to do it? How did that all come about?
It's definitely a passion project. I've been saying I want to write a book probably since early college. I remember as a college student, I joined this, the Olin Health Advocates, which was our school's health center. And I'm like, I want to do this in my head. I was like, gosh, I want to write a book someday. As a, career path, when I was deciding the whole, what do you want to be when you grow up? Things that were on my list, once I got past the little girl stuff, be a marine biologist or a fly girl on In Living Color. Once I got, I was so sad that was no longer a career option by the time I finished. I know. But when I got to the point, things that I loved, I loved writing. I love teaching. I enjoyed speaking, and I wanted to be a doctor. And, to find a way to do all of those things has been awesome. And I spent years educating myself, getting a second board certification in anti-aging and regenerative medicine, and teaching motivational interviewing and behavior change to med students. I already had all the knowledge on one hand, and I kept saying on the other hand for years I was going to write a book. And it still took putting those two hands together and saying, okay, I've been saying I'm going to do this. I'm going to get it done. And for me, I wasn't tied to the outcome of the book. I hope, my goal was I hope it helps people. Whether it becomes a bestseller or not wasn't something I could control, but who I was becoming in the process of writing that book and fulfilling the dream, that meant a lot to me. And so the fact that it did become a bestseller and it's been helping people, it almost doesn't even seem real because there was just so much love poured into this.
I'm looking at the title, and it's two words, habit that. But those two words together, man, there's so much there. So in a few sentences, kind of explain what habit that. Like what does that mean to you when you hear those two words together?
It started with peanut M&Ms. So there were a few out in a bowl after I was having lunch one day, and so I snacked on a few, and the next day they were still there. And then the third day they were gone, and immediately after lunch my brain was like, let's have some peanut M&Ms. I was like, wow, it did not take that long to habit that. And so then immediately it popped into my head like a light bulb. And I said, looking at any behavior that you start or that you're doing, ask yourself, do I want to habit that? If you do, by all means, keep going and help strengthen it. But if you don't, that gives you a golden opportunity to be aware and to get out of that path before it becomes too ingrained.
Now, most people say it takes somewhere around, 28 days or something to become habitual. Your statement there kind of just debunked that. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, yeah, that's an absolute myth because it depends on how strong the desire is for the habit and the reward and the benefits and the risks and the effort. I mean, you can form a cocaine habit in one day. So yeah. Certainly that's not it. And then I've been working on my sleep habit for 5 years. So it's about whatever the benefits, the barriers, and all of those different things. So although I would encourage people, if you can keep up a health protective habit for that, 21, 28 days, you are going to be substantially more successful at it. But don't think it takes that long. Sometimes it can actually happen a lot quicker than that. So.
Yeah, we hear stories of people deciding that they're going to stop smoking and stop that instant, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Human beings we're way too complex for everybody to fit into that one number.
Right. What are some other tips on habits that you outline in your book a little bit that our audience can get a glimpse into?
So it's honestly, once you understand how human nature works, it's a much more simple process than people realize. So the first thing I like to connect people with, whatever you identify the habit is. I want to get better sleep. I want to take better care of my stress. I want to eat better, et cetera, et cetera. What is your why? Now, not the why you're going to tell your doctor, I want to get my cholesterol down, blah, blah, blah. Because that doesn't get you excited. I mean, that's not the kind of thing that fires people up and gets their passion. So I have people kind of run through this exercise, 12 reasons. List 12 reasons why you want to do the habit. And the first couple are the ones that we would say for, public consumption. I want to have better cholesterol. I want to be healthier, et cetera, et cetera. The things we would just tell publicly. But then people start getting real. And I've had patients and clients share with me things like, I was on an airplane and I couldn't fit the seatbelt around me and I had to ask the flight attendant for a belt extender. And I was humiliating. And I never want to feel like that again. And I had a woman tell me that for once in her adult life, she wanted to be comfortable having sex with the lights on without a t-shirt on. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of things, wanting to be able to play with your kids without getting out of breath and having to sit down. When you connect with that real why you want to do this, on those days that it gets hard and you want to slip back into your old habits, that's how you keep connected. Step 2 is cleaning up your mindset. So we have a lot of BS ideas in our head. So I really encourage people to get a mental enema and get all of that BS out of their head. We have a lot of negative self-talk, negative self-labels. So a dear friend of mine always called himself the fat kid. And it was a joke at first. He really wasn't particularly overweight, but he would jiggle his belly. Oh no, I'm the fat kid. So call him up. Hey, do you want to go for a bike ride? Oh no, I'm the fat kid. And he did continue to gain weight. And I thought it was so interesting. If you think of yourself as the fat kid, you're going to act like a fat kid. You're going to eat like the fat kid. You're going to not exercise. I was like, this is such a ridiculous mindset. You're not even fat. Why did you decide to own that label of all things? And to see him, it took time. Once he was able to change that label, then you can, to something like, I'm a healthy person, then you can think and act like a healthy person. And I discourage people, again, as I mentioned earlier, from choosing something like skinny, because you can be you can be faux obese, you can be thin but very unhealthy. So if you embrace this label, I am a healthy person, the majority of your behaviors are going to be consistent with your label, and that's easier. So once you're connected with your why and have a true, healthy, honest self-image and get rid of all the BS, adding in the habits is one of the easiest things you can do. So I get people on the smarter goals pathway, and that's all. You just pick one habit at a time, or however many you feel like tackling, and dive right in. Fortunately, it is easier than people think, I promise.
Do you suggest somebody start with one particular habit, like getting up earlier or eating? Is there one particular thing that you tend to suggest more often, or no, not really?
Nope. It's whatever that first domino is that's going to get somebody engaged. Because if I suggest it to them and it's not something that resonates with them, they might not start. For me, my first one was drinking more water, and my second one was flossing my teeth. Some people are already doing those things, or some people, they really feel compelled that they want to start with an exercise thing or a sleep thing. So no, I let them guide, and then eventually they'll get around to the ones that I want them to do, which are things like sleep better, eat vegetables, don't drink your calories, that kind of stuff. But I find that people are more empowered if I let them choose.
And habits build momentum, right? If you start out with smaller things and get success and have success in the habits, then it's easier to create those larger habitual changes, I would assume. Is that correct?
Yes. We're hardwired for quick wins. So that checking off a box every day to ensure that I'm drinking enough water, and just that little thing building up slowly like compound interest, I saw it was easier than I thought, and that it was the first domino, and it really helped. Okay, the next habit, I can tackle the next one and the next one, and each one helped build my confidence and improve my health until I got to where I am today. A mostly healthy person who could probably use a smidge more sleep.
So other than the book, other than podcasts like our podcast, Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, how else do you share your message of hope, Dr. Hope?
Yes. So I love speaking. So it's taken off quite a bit. I did 45 engagements last year, and I'm already booked late into this year. So some of the stuff is the inspirational keynote style, but what I'm also offering now, this is a newer thing, something I'd always wanted to do. Companies need this type of training for their employees as well. So for the company's benefit, it helps increase productivity and decrease absenteeism and just improve the health of their employees overall by teaching healthy habits. So, there's definitely some corporate interest. And then for the employees, they get to lead their happiest, healthy lives and have on their company time get to learn how to do these things and feel empowered. So that's kind of the exciting new thing that I've been launching this year, and it's awesome, and I'm so excited about doing that.
And people can find this on your website? How do people find out about that?
Yep, they can reach out to me on my website. And this year I'll be, expanding it and building it out more. And interestingly, I don't have a ton of videos of me speaking on my website. And the reason is when somebody invites me to speak at a conference, and for instance, one of them I spoke at, they charged $10,000 per seat for everybody in the audience. They don't release those videos for public consumption. So some of my best work, unfortunately, I can't share because it's proprietary. But I am, the portfolio is substantial. I just don't have enough videos. But I'm certainly happy to work with people and helping create a program that's really going to best serve their audience.
And what's your website for our audience?
It's Dr. Hope Health. So Dr. Hope, Hope, Health, HEALTH.com.
All right. And for our audience, too, in the show notes and our emails when this podcast is released, we'll have the links and all that stuff to the book as well. So you'll have that right in front of you as well. So, Dr. Hope, my final question, that I ask every person that I interview for the last 2 years, from waking to sleeping, and I know that's variable for you because you do shift work. Yes. What is your daily routine, or some semblance of your daily routine?
Yeah. So I'll give it to you on a shift day just because that's easier. So I wake up. I love the Miracle Morning. So I don't know. Are you familiar with how Elrod's work?
I've heard it, yes, but I'm not overly familiar with it.
So, but it's, you do your savers in the morning, you do your, your silent time, your exercise, and it can be anywhere from 6 minutes to an hour, to really just set the intentions for the day. Now, I'm being honest here. I also have 2 young children who are 5 and 7, and the mornings can sometimes be chaos. So sometimes I don't get an hour to do this, sometimes just a few minutes, but at least it helps focus me and get me in the right mindset for the day. I always nourish myself with a healthy breakfast. And then depending on whether my shift is in the morning or the afternoon, I'll make sure that I have some time to get fitness in, spend some quality time with my, my kids, my husband, family, all of those things. And then I do my unwinding bedtime routine, whether I get home from work at 5 p.m. or 2 a.m. to help get me into that mindset for bedtime. So lots of fun and awesome things in the middle.
Yeah. My days are very, very similar because I have 2 young boys myself, and and I don't call it a miracle morning, but yeah, I need about an hour and 15 minutes if I want to do everything that I like to do in the morning before I legitimately start my day. So
yeah, and it matters to help start your day with that, whatever you call it, whatever program or routine you use. Setting that intention, and accomplishing those things, it really does help set you up for success.
Totally agree. Well, thank you for your time. As I said, the book Habit That, it will be in the show notes and our weekly emails when this is released, so you can pick that up through Amazon or wherever else you want it. It's a great book. Highly recommend it. Thank you so much, Dr. Hope. I appreciate it. I know you're obviously, and it's clear that you're super busy, so we thank you greatly for being on the show.
I really appreciate you having me. Thank you for what you do so much and spreading that message of, for all of the things that you do out to the audience. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Noah Decore, your co-host, and you're listening to the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please share this with your friends and family and encourage them to subscribe on iTunes. Better yet, if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating. We can also be found on Spotify and YouTube. Don't forget to check out our brand new supplement line, and you could sign up for our incredible weekly email at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com. Thank you, and as my oldest son Hayden says, be awesome and never unawesome.